He is the owner, the head trainer of the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. He is a 2016 Ring of Honor Top Prospect Tournament finalist. He is a 16-year veteran of the Independent Mat Wars, if you don't mind me saying, Brian. He is trained by former WWE developmental talent Steve Bradley, the Mofo. He is, I'm not sure I really like this.
I like it. Come on, New Hampshire. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't like this. New Hampshire's favorite son.
What, you want to take that one?
I don't know. Maybe.
New Hampshire's favorite son. He is the Firebrand. He is Brian Fury, and he's here right now in his palatial bedroom.
It is a nice bedroom.
That's nice. Is this where the magic happens, Brian?
This is where the magic happens. Yes, it is. Hello, Michael. Hello, Brian. How are you guys?
Fantastic, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, I'm digging the bedroom. I mean, you're all comfy over there.
Thank you.
I'm kind of on this hard chair or whatever. I'm thinking maybe I don't know. Maybe at some point if we get really into some interesting topics, maybe I'll come snuggle over there with you.
Maybe. Real quick, before you guys ask me questions, I have one question for the two of you guys. Besides being very good friends of mine for a very long period of time, what do the two of you have in common when it comes to me?
Oh, well, I think I know this.
Okay.
I think I know this.
Okay, let's see.
Let's see.
Go for it.
Well, we're both Brian Michaels. I know that much.
Okay, we are.
And he's Michael.
Yes. That's not what I was getting at.
Oh,
Do you
right.
want to take a stab, Mr. Crockett?
I haven't the foggiest.
Okay, you are two of my closest friends, and neither one of you invited me to your weddings. That's one of the...
It got awkward in here real quick.
Start off like that.
Well, we always like to peel back the curtain a little bit here on the wrestling podcast. And that was, it's funny because I think in the beginning, and we are going to take a little bit different direction, I think, in this interview, but we were going to talk about first impressions and meeting each other and whatnot. And I know for me and you, not friends.
No.
Not friends.
we were not friends in the slightest. I wouldn't say bitter enemies, but we certainly, you wouldn't invite me to your wedding, and we wouldn't hang out after a show or anything like that.
Well, I mean,
that's
I think
for sure.
Before we kissed and made up, I think I came to the first ever Brock Lesnar fight at your house.
Yes.
I was a friend of your lady friend at the time, so that's how I got the invite. But I don't think we were quite friends at that point.
All water under the bridge. We are very tight nowadays, but yeah, it's funny how. The wrestling business can kind of do that with people, like make people dislike each other or like each other or the same over a period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think to give the people a little background on it, I started with Chaotic, and you were with WFA at the time, run by Steve Bradley.
And bitter enemies.
You're right. There was like this little promotional rivalry. I won't get too into the details because they're not my details to share, but I think Steve had a problem with Chaotic, rightfully so, and in turn, I think Chaotic had a problem with Steve, and Steve had closed down his place, and then a bunch of you guys had come, you and Al.
I think Nikki and I were the first two to come over to kind of like brave those waters and stuff, and after we were there for a couple shows, that a couple other people started to come along with us afterwards. And I am a very upfront, somewhat abrasive person, and that rubs people wrong when they don't really know me yet. They kind of just think I'm some jerk or whatever. I mean, I am a jerk, but at the same time, once people kind of get to know me, they realize that's just me. I'm not like a jerk about it. That's just how I am.
I compared it to a good old-fashioned pissing contest. And I think what turned it around for us is I think we took a road trip together, just me and you, and we started kind of shooting the shit or whatever and kind of realizing how much we actually really had in common from like a family standpoint and a little bit of an upbringing standpoint.
Both from New Hampshire.
Both from New Hampshire.
Yes.
But I think that's kind of was like the turning point for us realizing like, all right, we're kind of being idiots with this and,
Right. No, definitely. I think a lot of people may or may not realize that pro wrestling is a lot like any other job where you're not necessarily going to get along with everybody that you're working with. And what's different for us is like we have to go out there and put our lives in each other's hands and stuff. So it's much better if you do get along with everybody, but at the same time, that's one of the beautiful things about professional wrestling is the professionalism and the brotherhood there. Whether you like each other or don't like each other, when you go out there, it's all business and stuff. And we were lucky enough where we were always all business together. And then, as time went on, definitely became good friends and started traveling up and down the roads.
Down the road. Well, it's funny. I was actually asked today by somebody that we both know. I was asked by Demon Ortiz, Louis Ortiz. He asked me who of all the guys that I've wrestled I had the best chemistry with, and my answer was you.
Thank you.
Which is ironic. I mean, but this is something we've talked about. And this is not just me giving you lip service here because you're on my podcast
Right.
now. This is something we've talked about before, and for whatever reason, when we wrestle, it clicks. It works. We always seem to be on the same page. So, always very cool.
No, yeah, it's always been a lot of fun. We had a couple different memorable programs and stuff, and definitely we
had maybe an overzealous ref that may have almost tried to ruin a couple matches here and there, but
son of a
What?
I think he's on an extended hiatus currently.
for good reason.
That's forced out. Let me give my first memory of Brian Fury.
Okay.
I believe it was the first show for NRG, and I got booked as a referee, and I was trying to find the building and having a little trouble, and I ended up pulling up to a light behind a car with the New Hampshire license plate kayfabe.
Oh boy!
And I had two thoughts. My first thought was, oh great, this guy. There's no way this guy is not going to the show, so I can follow him there and know where I'm going. And second, the person driving this car is probably kind of a dickweed.
Well, ding, ding, ding on both accounts, right?
that license plate got such an interesting reaction. People either absolutely loved it or absolutely hated it and despised it. And Steve Bradley, my trainer at the time, when I got it, he laughed and said, "That's the same license plate that Pat Patterson had." And so I had it for a year, and I got rid of it after the year just because of the amount of hatred and love for it. Was just I was like, okay, enough. I'm just going to get regular plate now, some generic whatever plate.
Yeah, this was still, you guys were still on the Bradley side, and I was on the chaotic side, so this was the first kind of...
One side of the locker room and the other, right? You didn't interact with this guy, did you, at the time?
Well, no, I didn't really interact with anybody.
He had to ref one of my matches, though,
Oh,
and boy, was that match good.
It was a tag team battle, and yes, there was miscommunication of epic
Yada,
proportions.
yada, yada.
Yeah, yada, yada, yada. I had my head in my hands. Yada, yada, yada. DC Dillinger attempted to console me.
Whoa. Our first ever DC Dillinger reference on the podcast. I love it.
Oh, my goodness. That was a rough one. Now, you had this career in WFA and Chaotic, and how did it come about that you became the owner of what was the Chaotic Training Center and is now the New England Pro Wrestling Academy?
So after Mike Hollow left, myself, Brian Malonis, and Warbeard Todd Hansen kind of stepped up and became the trainers there. We each had a different day. Malonis had Tuesdays, I had Thursdays, and Todd had Saturdays. We had a good relationship working together for a while. We each had our different nights. If somebody needed something covered or something like that, one of us would step in and blah, 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 blah. The way I remember things is Brian had to start stepping away from the school because he was getting ready to have his first child and become a dad. And so that left another night open. And then Todd was kind of back and forth and about being able to help out on that Tuesday night all the time and Saturday sometimes because he was hurt and stuff. And so Jamie, the owner of Chaotic, who also owned the school, if push came to shove, there's nothing he can do to train or teach. So his idea was he was going to close it, basically. And I loved teaching so much, and I always thought that I wanted to cement myself in this business one way or another for the long term, even for after my career's over and stuff like that. And I love training so much that I thought that would be the right way to do it. So him and I worked something out, and I ended up purchasing the school from him, renamed it to kind of get it away from just being the Chaotic school. hence the New England Pro Wrestling Academy name. And that was, July 4th, I think, 4.
It's going to be like 4. My daughter's 4, so it's going to be 5.
It was July 1st, 4 years ago, so 2012 is when I took over the school and have been kind of training. Been there ever since, which is kind of crazy. I think it's been that long already, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, and so you hit the nail on the head. That's why I had stepped away. And the one thing for me stepping away was I had a very strong emotional attachment to the place because that's where I started. And I remember saying to you, like, I felt like the school was obviously in very good hands with you, which was a big part of me. Like, I mean, I would have probably, truth be told, probably stepped away anyways. But it's God, man. When you care about something and when you're emotionally invested into something, it does give you peace of mind to step away, knowing like this is in great hands. So for me, that was a big part of it, which is awesome. It's an awesome feeling knowing because the legacy of that school is the Chaotic Training Center, and then Walter Kowalski came over. And now to the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. So the lineage of the school, I think, is one that's important in especially New England wrestling history, but probably pro wrestling history when we're going to talk about some of the names later on.
Yeah, no, it's pretty awesome to think about that the school that I have and now own is linked to, those places and the lineage that goes back as far as it is. When I sell the school, like, to potential students and stuff, they kind of bring that up to me. And it's not something that I try to, like, push, like, I'm, like, a direct line to Walter Kowalski and stuff like that. Technically, I am, but I don't try to, like, take credit for being in that succession line, if that makes any sense to you guys.
Me and Big John Stud, we were always hanging out.
But can I say something? You're a damn fool. It's a marketing ploy.
Well,
Market the shit out of it.
It's still on the door. If his website is still up, if I remember correctly, it pushes you over to my website and stuff like that. It has links to it and stuff. So yes, in that sense I do, but at the same time, like, I'm probably a little too honest for this business when it comes to things like that. I try to do things the right way. I tell people who I'm, who I have trained that are on TV and stuff now, but I won't take credit for people that came before my training and stuff like that, even though, like, technically, like, because of the lineage of the school, I could, but it's just I don't feel right doing that.
Right. No. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, yeah, we were once Killer Kowalskis. Yes. I'm not saying being a piece of shit. Be like, yeah, no, I trained Triple H, by the way, guys. I don't know if you know that. I was like in high school. I trained him. My pal Paul.
Oh, Paul.
Okay, so you said that you always kind of wanted to train. So where did that kind of come from?
When I was training up at Steve Bradley's, the Top Rope Pro Wrestling Academy, which is kind of where I got the Academy name on top of the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. Mm-hmm. There were some days where, like, when newer students would come in, he would have me work with them on basics, lockups, fundamentals, foundations, and things like that. And I really, really enjoyed it. And once in a while, he'd have me do, like, certain drills, like put together drills and things for classes and stuff like that. Kind of like what the beginner's ring is at my school now. And I just really enjoyed it a lot then. And that was, like, the first time I was able to really start helping people as they joined wrestling. And then later on, taking over the one night a week at the Chaotic Training Center, like, being able to teach, like, the psychology aspect and the more advanced stuff that I learned from Steve and through my travels, like, I really liked that a lot more. And being able to see people grow and come into their own, like, I don't know, it felt awesome, like, watching them and their dreams kind of come true because of help that I've given them. And so it's just been awesome ever since. Like, I can't really put it into words exactly how it feels. I mean, I know you've trained some, Brian, and you've had a lot of success with, some of our earlier students, so that feeling. Like, it's hard to really describe and put into words. It's
not, I mean, living vicariously would be like an inaccurate, but kind of at the same time to give somebody the idea of what that feels like. But to be able to help somebody, it's almost like paying forward what, so what Steve did for you, what Mike Hollow did for me, this was our dream. And then so you're seeing people come in who, like, literally you're thinking back, like, I always would think back, like, to my first day a lot when I was doing the training, and you remember the people that were kind to you and helped you along your way. So it's that feeling of like, yeah, I'm helping this person. I was this guy one time when I stepped in, and let me help them, deliver their dreams. And I think one of the things, and if you don't mind me steering this one, Mike, so one of the biggest challenges for me with the school was when you're not the head trainer or whatever, or you're not the trainer, when you're just a guy doing shows, you can kind of pick and choose who you want to help. But when you are opening a school, everybody who comes through that door, that you're accepting their money and agreeing to train them, your name is stamped across their forehead. For me, that was the biggest challenge. Is that your biggest challenge, or do you have other challenges? What are some of the challenges of it?
I don't know if it's my biggest challenge, but it's definitely like a weight on my shoulders. For better or worse, everybody that comes through that building and gets on shows at one point or another has my name stamped on them. And I say for better or worse because not every egg is a good egg. Meaning, like, there are some people that can be very gifted athletically and progress really fast, but some of them have bad attitudes and things like that. Some of them, pro wrestling, some people feel like things are owed to them because they trained or put work in and stuff like that. And so promoters and certain people and other wrestlers can see that, and they're like, oh, you're a Fury guy? Okay. And then that kind of comes back onto me. But also all the good eggs that are out there, like everybody that shows up the shows they're not booked on, just helps out with the ring crew and stuff like that. So that type of stuff, shines a good light on me and stuff like that. It's one of those things where when your name is on anybody, for better or worse, it's always, you got to be wary of it. But at the same time, I feel like I instill so much in everybody that when they get out there, like, I'm happy that my name is on them. As far as like things that are like way heavy on me, other than that, I feel responsible for everybody that comes in, and not meaning like whether they get hurt or not, but I want them to succeed. I feel responsible getting everybody booked on their first show and helping them get matches and stuff like that. Like, I don't think a lot of that was done for me when I first started, before I trained with Steve. Like, where I trained at first was connected closely to one affiliation in one place, but that was it. You weren't really allowed to wrestle anywhere else. It wasn't helped. You weren't helped to get your name out there or anything like that. And I feel like that is a big thing that I want to do. And I feel responsible for all my students for at least one match. And then from there, it's on them, I think, to take it where they want to go after there.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool because I can attest to, for as good as my training was, I went to the Chaotic School, which is only affiliated with Chaotic Wrestling. So Mike did a lot for me, but Mike never got me booked on shows.
Right.
So I think that's really cool that, that you took the initiative to, or you take the initiative to try to get your students booked and get them opportunities and provide those learning experiences that help you grow as a performer and person in this business.
But even though you're the head trainer and you're helping all these other guys out, I mean, you're still an active wrestler. You still have a career. You're going all over New England and beyond. So how do you balance that with the school?
Sometimes it's overwhelming. It's like, I don't want to say that one means more to me than the other, but I'd be lying if I didn't say like my career has always been like a step ahead of the school. It doesn't mean I treat the school second best or anything like that, because I still think I put a ton of effort into the school, but first and foremost, my career is always kind of like what took precedence when it came time for me to do things. So in that sense, like, sometimes I'm not able to make every Saturday morning class because I have to travel, or I'm traveling back from a show Friday night or something like that, so I have to get somebody to cover it. I try to be there all 3 days a week that we're open, and whenever there's a day that I'm not there, I give all the credit in the world to the two guys that helped me out, Johnny Vegas and Amato, who wrestles as Setherin, as like they helped me out in the beginner's ring, and I never give them enough credit for a lot of the stuff they do there. but when I'm not there, I have 100% faith in them and I trust in them, but I just feel like, with it being my school and my name on everything, like, I feel guilty not being there, helping out in some way, shape, or form. So, with my career coming first and me taking a lot of bookings, when I was traveling a little bit for Ring of Honor recently and stuff, and going out and about, like, it's hard to balance the two, I guess you could say, like, because I want both to succeed really well, and I can only do so much with my schedule and everything else,
Right. So you talked about Ring of Honor. I mean, you were in the Top Prospect tournament this year. Well, we talked in the Hansen interview. That's episode 8 and 9, I believe, of the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing. About you thought that probably you were going to be in it the previous year, but then you had Todd jinxed you, essentially.
Todd cursed me.
Yes.
That son of a bitch.
Yeah, you were. It looked like you were
the
heading.
old Hansen jinx.
Yes, like you were heading into the 2015 Top Prospect tournament, but you had a devastating ankle injury, the first injury of your career, and that was what, 13, 14 years in?
Yeah, at that point, it was like 13 years in. Things were going great. It looks like everything was lining up. We had a lot of different opportunities ahead of me. Did that TV taping for Ring of Honor, got a TV title shot, wrestled Matt Taven for the TV title 2 weeks in a row on Ring of Honor television, and literally 6 days after the tapings, just a freak accident on a neck breaker, a move I do every single one of my matches, just twisted my ankle, ended up being a spiral fracture. I needed a plate and 7 screws put in there.
Who was the guy who put you out?
That bastard Chris Masters.
Oh my
Should
goodness!
I use the same joke I used with Todd? Hey, Bri, you dropped the name over there. Did you want to pick it up?
The masterpiece. Took him out.
It's so weird because that was the first time I ever met him, and he felt like terrible about it. I still wrestled for another like 5 minutes on it, like broken and stuff. And I remember telling him, I had him in a hold, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to like bump and feed for you. He goes, oh, it's okay. We'll figure something. We did something. We worked, and he got me in the master lock. And then he cut a promo to the crowd saying like, that I got hurt, and he feels bad that he couldn't perform the long match that we wanted to do. We were in main event and stuff like that. And, he found out that I had like to get surgery and stuff. And he actually like sent me a private message and called me like a couple weeks later, which is unheard of for like a name
that's really nice move
that I've never really met before, like to call and check on me and see how I was doing and stuff like that. So that was really cool of him. Yeah, and then I was out for a while, and I like to think, there's no guarantees in professional wrestling, but I like to think I was on my way to doing something in the Top Prospect tournament that year, because it looked like things were going really well with Ring of Honor. I did like 2 seminars, and then I did those TV tapings and stuff, and I had a good rapport with, Kevin Kelly and Hunter and stuff like that. And that happened, and I was kind of out of the spotlight for quite a while.
It was like almost a year, was it? Or
it was, I was out of their eyes for like a year, and then I did a seminar again like a year later, and I had like my new, like a new look, like those new like leathery type pants and stuff like that and everything, and they really liked it. And even then, it was another like 6 months before they called me to do the Top Prospect thing. So it was like, both times I was like, okay, well, I guess nothing's going to happen. And then the phone rings. It's usually...
You were really like a big focal point, too, of like that tournament. I think your story was featured probably more so than anybody else's in that tournament, talking about your history, how you're in the Top Prospect tournament, but it's a weird term for you because... You've trained a previous winner of the Top Prospect tournament.
I think what they said to me was I was the first person ever in the Top Prospect tournament to be an official heel. I was the first person to have kind of like a storyline that progressed from match 1 to the finals. So in all those aspects, I thought it was really cool, and to be really featured and get like some promo time and stuff like that on their TV, like. I couldn't ask for anything more, and I like to think I made the most out of all 3 of those matches that I had the opportunities for. Going forward, I know they have a lot of different people going in and out of there, and their deal with New Japan and stuff like that, so they are busy, but at the same time, in pro wrestling, you just never really say never, so who knows?
Just like Dennis Stamp, man. You never know when your next match is going to be. You gotta stay in shape.
Get in the underwear, start jumping up and down the bed right here. We'll gotta stay in shape.
That's what he's going to do after we leave.
Oh, all right. So yeah, we're talking about your kind of your personal goals here, and something else that kind of happened. We're kind of going back with this before all the Ring of Honor stuff, but you had a match on WWE TV, and with mic work and all.
Yes, Mike Testa had some mic work on WWE SmackDown. Myself and Ilya Markopoulos.
Yes. Ari Cohen.
Yes, we were Ari Cohen and Mike Testa, and we wrestled Ryback on a SmackDown taped in Manchester, New Hampshire. Yes, we got to do some mic work ahead of the match and stuff. We told jokes.
Oh, all right.
We told jokes, not very good ones, but we told jokes.
See, too bad it wasn't live Raw. You could have hit the New Hampshire's favorite son line if it was a live episode of Raw.
So the writer gave us our lines, and he walked us through them like 50 times to the point where like I just couldn't. Like I was sick and tired of going over these jokes. And then he made the point of telling us, like the last 2 times we went over them, that if they were getting a really good reaction and if the crowd was hating us, Vince might not hit Ryback's music. So you have to have jokes of your own ready to go just in case. And so me and Ilya were like, what, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, if it's getting good reactions and the crowd's really biting on it, Vince is just kind of want to let you guys go. I don't know if he was ribbing us or if that was actually the case. I could see either one. So then we like, Ilya and I came up with like 3 other, like, probably even worse than the terrible jokes that they wrote. I couldn't remember a single one of them. But, they cut me off on the line, like 2 guys walking to a bar. That's when Ryback's music was supposed to hit. It is when it hit. But then I had to come up with jokes that would play off of that, and he'd have to come up with the punchline and things like that. So we had like 3 or 4 different ones in our head ready to go for that night. I couldn't tell you, but thank goodness they hit his music when they did, because it would have been even worse than those jokes already were had it kept going.
So how was Ryback to work with overall?
He was awesome, man. He was really cool. He was super grateful that like all the local guys and stuff were helping him get over. I mean, that was like his 3rd different time being on TV, I think. When we watched Raw every week for like 6 months, I used to keep saying Ryback should be out, and he, obviously he never did for forever.
Every vignette you said, this is Ryback's vignette.
Yeah, and then nope, it was somebody else. So he was like actually super grateful, really awesome, like telling us like, how he hit solid with this, how he does this and stuff like that. And after the match, he gave us big hugs, thanked us a lot and stuff. He was awesome, like definitely a cool guy to work with. I couldn't have asked for like a better experience for my one and only WWE in-ring match.
But you had a bunch of opportunities to be an extra and do different things, correct?
Yeah. I was a security guard for Randy Orton in Triple H, or a police officer for Randy Orton.
What was your name? Officer?
I was Officer Fulton.
Yes.
And we protected Randy Orton from Triple H leading into WrestleMania 25. I got to do this great bit that Crockett loves as a photographer with Great Khali and Jinder Mahal.
We talked about that night.
Yes, we did. Yes. You're very frightened.
Yes.
I think our favorite TV memory together was Nassau Coliseum. We weren't even on in the segment, just walking down the hall and
with Edge and Kelly
and Kelly maybe adjusting her wardrobe a little bit and yada yada yada. Me and Mike. Me and Mike Testa. Me and Testa here are a couple of creeps.
Yeah, you're wiping your brows and like humana.
Exactly. A little biting of the palm a little bit.
On your vignette that you did with Christian in Mohegan Sun, I think you forgot to mention that you guys were playing roulette.
Yes.
And they gave you fake chips to bet.
Right.
And you put your money down, and your number actually came up, and you celebrated and you thought
you were
really going to win the money, and then you realized like, oh no, I'm really not winning the money, even though I just bet on the winning number. So you celebrated like crazy.
Is that not the ultimate Mike Crockett luck though? That's like the epitome of Crockett. He hits huge on roulette, but it's a work.
Well, I mean, they gave me like thousands of dollars in chips. I put it down like every other number. That's what we don't talk about. But anyway, what about like we talked about your personal goals. What about opportunities for your students? Like, have a lot of your students like gone to TV and stuff like that for WWE?
Recently, Travis Gordon and I guess Darley is still technically one of my students, even though he's kind of training with Hollow and stuff right now. They both just did some extras work for Monday Night Raw not too long ago. They got to drag Stephanie McMahon out of the ring and into the back.
That's a spot.
Yes, yes. So not as much. I know some of them have been in contact a little bit.
It's not as it used to be.
It's different.
Like the school would send people.
it's-
It's more like everyone personally has a kind of their.
Yeah, it's such a different thing now, I think, than it used to be, and but still we had a whole episode on it, but still a cool, I think, experience for everybody.
For me, you guys were brought up in Chaotic and stuff, and they sent a lot of people a lot of the time, and the way Steve was with us was he didn't want. And I'm kind of along this lines because that's kind of how I was brought up. He didn't want to put someone in front of the office until he knew they were ready and they would kind of like get at least half of like a legitimate look at somebody.
Right.
And he feels that way because of how he was stereotyped from the way he looked when he first got signed. That's the way they still looked at him all those years later, even towards the end when he was like a completely different person, completely
Right.
different wrestler and stuff like that. And they were like, no, you're still like the young RVD type guy, when he certainly was not that at all, towards the end. And I think that stems from how he didn't want to send people to TV until he knew that they were ready and get kind of like, and be ready and get like a legitimate look. So I'm kind of along those lines, but I do want people to get more eyes on on some of the people.
Right. What about someone like Donovan Dijak, who you basically trained from scratch?
Yeah, he's like the first guy just from my school and just from me that has really made a huge impact. I know he did a tryout down at the Performance Center and stuff. He got looked at. Then he did the Top Prospect tournament for Ring of Honor. He won that, signed a deal with them, and he's been blowing up. Like, it's funny. Like, I'll just say this right now. He's been blowing up everywhere except for Ring of Honor for whatever reason. In my opinion, Ring of Honor has really, I want to say they dropped the ball with him because he is amazing, and I think there's so much more they could do with him.
I think they're just so backlogged with talent, especially like you said with the New Japan guys.
Right.
He's going to be one that gets away from them. I think I've been on record many times as saying I think Dijak legitimately is going to be a major star in professional wrestling in the not too distant future.
He's one of those guys where training was more of a joy than it was pulling my hair out of my head because he would do something wrong. Okay, I would tell him how to fix it, and then he would fix it. Not like some other students where I have to repeat myself like 10 times and they still do it wrong every single time. And he'd always ask questions, ask feedback and stuff, and he picked up on stuff right away. He had a lot of good wrestling instincts, which is something I like to toss around all the time. Like, I can lead people from point A to B to C, but like when I was coming up, you teach me A, teach me D, and I can do B and C on my own because I've watched wrestling my whole life. I have wrestling instincts. Dijak had a lot of wrestling instincts, so he could just kind of fill in a lot of the gaps and stuff like that. And then any mistakes that he made along the way, he was very receptive to feedback, not only from me, but from other people on the indies and stuff like that. When we wrestled with you, Brian, and stuff like that, wrestled Todd and stuff, like he was always open for input and stuff like that. And he's done very well for himself in the short period of time that he's been wrestling.
What about other like standout students? How about like a Brick Mastone?
Brick Mastone, Andrew he's awesome. For me, I'd like to see a little more growth out of him. I think he skyrocketed really fast and got to a certain point, and I think he's kind of almost plateaued a little bit. But he was a power lifter, very strong kid, super smart, great head on his shoulders. I think. He got himself some new gear. He looks awesome. He has so much intensity in the ring. I think a little bit more experience for him being out there is going to take him a lot further than he is now. I think
he's step out of his comfort zone.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. He's done so well, and I think he just needs to kind of be seen a little bit more in front of crowds and stuff like that for him to feel a little more comfortable and to go a little further. Other kids right now like Travis Gordon, who is an unbelievable athlete. The kid can literally do anything. He's one of those like high flying, like Ricochet, Aerofox, Shinron type guys. They can literally do anything, and I'm trying to really, I don't want to say ground him, but teach him a lot of the stuff in addition to be able to do all that high-flying stuff
the
like
in-between
that.
stuff.
Yeah, so he can be like a really, really well-rounded type of guy. Cam Zagami, Anthony Green, two guys that are young, in shape, and both have really like the whole world ahead of them as far as pro wrestling goes. And that's just like a short list of kind of like some current students off the top of my head that are there now that I think can do a lot in the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Anthony Green. I think he's a guy who, he started. He was like this fat little referee kid who like hung around forever, and to see his transformation. But I think you've been a big part of that transformation, kind of taking that raw clay and helping mold it, which is huge.
Yeah, he's definitely getting out there now. What about more famous students?
Well, I got a surprise here for
a surprise.
Our friend Brian.
Uh-oh.
So
a surprise.
So I reached out to maybe some of your more notable students.
Okay.
And this is not like a roasting thing. If you're getting nervous here.
Damn it. I'd rather it be a roast. I don't want to hear people saying good things about this guy.
We'll have plenty of time to roast Brian during the fight, I'm sure. But so I reached out for some quotes or just some thoughts from some of your more well-known students.
Okay.
So the first one was Donovan Dijak. This is what Dijak had to say about you, and I totally should have worn my glasses. Oh, boy. Yeah, I'm old man Malone is
showing the age over there.
So this is what Dijak had to say. I said, I've trained with many of the best trainers across the globe. I can say without hesitation or hyperbole that Brian Fury is unequivocally the most underrated trainer in professional wrestling today. His attention to detail, combined with strict, stern, yet friendly coaching style, is unmatched. There is no question in my mind that Brian is the number one reason that I and many others have a high-level job in pro wrestling. I owe him a lot, and most importantly, he's a good friend and a good guy. So, next, I reached out to another guy.
Do you agree with all that?
It's weird to hear stuff. I don't know. Like, I never do this to like get praise or hear praise, but like to hear something like that, like for somebody like me, like it just feels really good inside to hear something like that from somebody that that I think has done really well, and he's more than a student. Like I consider him a friend at this point in time too. Like so that it feels nice. Like it's just neat.
All right, so let's do it again.
Yes, let's do it again.
The tears are almost coming. Let's go.
The tear in my eye.
So I reached out to WWE NXT superstar Oni Lorcan,
who
formerly known as and better known to us as the manliest man Biff Busick.
Oh, okay.
Christopher Gerard as well. He was on NXT, but this is what he had to say. He goes, "The most important thing I think he did for me when I first started was to take me to shows with him so I could get experience. To be able to train with someone, then apply what they taught in front of an audience, then talk about it on the car ride was a great formula for me to get better." So it's kind of funny. You talked about getting your students first, opportunities on shows. And
yeah, it was hard to talk with him on rides home because he would usually sleep a lot in the cars. I have like 2 or 3 pictures on my Facebook of him just sleeping in the back seat
with mouth agape,
mouth wide open. But I remember, I think it was me, him, Julian, and Elia. I took all of them down to some DPW tapings down in Connecticut, and I made sure that they all got matches and stuff like that. So yeah, it's one of those things where I made sure that students kind of got out there, and that's awesome that he remembers that and feels good about me helping him get out there and be able to walk through stuff on the ride home and stuff. That was cool.
And he ain't doing so bad himself.
No, doing all right for himself. Doing all right.
So you're all done, right?
No, I got one more.
What?
And this one probably your most notable student.
What are you talking about?
You're, a young lady who is doing okay for herself.
She's doing all right.
She may or may not, I don't know. She may or may not make it at this point.
She may be the boss.
Yeah. So, of course, I'm talking about WWE superstar Sasha Banks.
Yes.
Probably your most notable student of yet.
Sweetheart.
And this is what she had to say. She goes, "Fury could be tough sometimes, a hard ass, but it prepared me for what was to come. He was great teaching the fundamentals in psychology. One thing I always remember that was little, he always stood in the middle of the ring and didn't circle his opponents. He told me right before a lockup, Why are you circling? Stand there. Watch the other guy circle around you. That's your ring. You own that ring. Let your opponent come to you.
Yes, that's oddly enough, I think I learned that from Terry Taylor at a random seminar, and that's one of those things that stuck with me, and I never forgot. And I make sure I try to instill that in students. Dijak does that too a lot, and to think that she remembers that is awesome. Like, it's really cool, especially like where she is now, as big of a star as she's become. And I say it all the time. I think she's the best woman wrestler like in the world today. Like, for me to have played some sort of role in her being as good as she is, like it feels really good inside, and it's awesome. And yeah, she's a sweetheart. And she's right. I was very hard on her because I saw a lot in her, and I knew how badly she wanted it. So I think I was maybe harder on her than other students and stuff. And she might not have liked it so much at the time, but I think she kind of like understands now being where she is and stuff like that. So
And she was kind of the only female around at that time, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you already kind of elaborated on it a little bit, but here's three people who are doing really great things in pro wrestling. You got one in Ring of Honor, one in the NXT WWE developmental system.
Right.
Just starting to make a name for himself. Literally 2 weeks ago, had his first televised win, and then maybe the top female wrestler in WWE currently, in Sasha Banks. And you've played a role, in all of their success. So you elaborated on it a little bit, but obviously a very cool feeling that. Of all the stuff you've personally done, you've also impacted the wrestling industry as a whole in a positive manner. It's
kind of crazy. It's not like I've sat here and thought about it like that, or like, so it's really, I guess, like awe-inspiring to think of how like far like my ripple has gone from the the rock I've thrown in the pond of pro wrestling. So it's really cool and neat for that to be the case. You know what I mean? Like, I always wanted to make some sort of an impact in professional wrestling, and I didn't realize, I guess even right until now, like how maybe large of an impact or something like that I have had. So that's awesome. I don't know. It's weird to not have words about something, because I normally have a lot of opinions and words on everything.
This is what I wanted to do too. I wanted him to be at a loss for words. All right, I did it.
Well done. No,
I didn't get a tear though. I didn't get a tear. That's what I was going for.
I don't know.
Here.
Maybe we squeezed one.
But I think it's cool that these are people who who haven't forgotten, and I guess that's probably the most important thing that we're probably, especially these three, that we're probably forgetting to elaborate on a little bit. They're all just like legitimately good people. Like, that's not like, yes, they're professional wrestlers. Yes, they are all stars in their own right, at different levels of their career. But all are just good people who didn't forget where they came from. No, and I think part of that is what you've instilled in them as well.
Yeah, they were all super great people, super enthusiastic, super nice. All of them, all the way through. Like, I couldn't have like many bad things to say about any of them when it came to training or their attitude at class or attitude at shows, driving to shows, because I've driven with all of them, and they're awesome, and I couldn't be more happy for the success that they've had. Like, I think they deserve it so much, like 10 times over.
So we talked about your students from the past. What do you see for the future for the school?
Right now, it's weird, we had a huge influx of students at the beginning of summer, and now every Tuesday and Thursday, we legitimately have over 20 people at the school each day, and it's awesome. Like,
it's madness.
Yes, and especially right now with how hot it gets in there, like, we are cooking literally in there.
Oh, big sweat stain on the mat.
Yes, from different things and different blow-up drills and stuff. It's kind of neat that I kind of know people that are at NXT and that at the Performance Center, and have done tryouts and stuff, so I know what they're looking for when they go there. I know what blow-up drills and stuff they have them do when they go there, so I can do them at class and kind of prepare them for stuff like that.
Squats on the top rope?
No, I have done those a little bit before. That's an old Eddie Edwards thing. He used to do squats on the top rope while people like hit the ropes and stuff like that. Did they do it on one of the Tough Enoughs, maybe?
Yeah.
That was a requirement for me when I was training. I've been to the top rope like twice in my career, and it both times was like inside of a steel cage. And that was like, when I started training, Mike Hollow was like, "Yeah, so get on the top rope and do some squats." I'd be like, "Well, it's been really nice. I'm just going to go back to watching wrestling."
So like, as far as like I know what people need to be capable of when they get ready to be looked at and stuff. So I kind of test them. Maybe not to the extent of what Hollow was having you guys do during the quote Deep South days.
Don't remind me.
But I definitely push on my students as far as that goes. So it's cool to make sure I have people ready. So we had a huge influx of students. I see some potential. It's weird. You can usually see potential in people right away, but there's always a couple people that kind of surprise you that you go, I'm not too sure about this one, how he's going to do in the long run, and they really like jump out and stuff like that. There's a couple of those that are kind of like in the intermediate stage of training right now that I've been surprised by. The beginning class, it's hard to tell, but I think I have a couple girls there right now. There's 3 girls at the school right now, all within their first like 2 months of training, and they're all super hard workers and stuff. So it's good to have some more females around, because the only ones I've really had, had Sasha, I had Casey Ray, and then we had Davienne. All 3 did, done pretty well in their times and stuff. So hopefully these 3 being able to train together with each other as well as with the guys and stuff, I think, if they stick with it, I think they can go pretty far.
Now, what about personally? I know at one point you were talking about retirement, but it didn't.
That actually is funny that you bring that up, because that was something I was going to kind of spring on you guys here and make an official announcement.
Oh no!
Right here
Oh boy.
On the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing.
Oh, thank you.
2016 has been an awesome year for me, but I am old. I am getting old, and
oh no!
And so the official announcement, 2016 will be my last active year as a professional wrestler. I'll be taking bookings up until the end of December, and then after that, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, 100% of my focus is going to be going on training the school and really kind of ramping things up there. I think we just talked about the success I've had there so far, and it hasn't really been like the main focus, I guess you could say. And so I'm ready and at the stage of my life and my career where I want that to be the main focus of everything I do going forward. And so the in-ring part of my career is winding down. I don't recover the same way I used to. I feel like ever since the ankle injury, I've lost a step or two as far as like agility, physicality, speed, and stuff like that. And it's like I could continue to keep doing this for another 2 or 3 years, like, and still be at a decent level. But I never wanted to be one of those guys that wrestled around New England until they were 40-something and just kind of hanging on and doing it because, like, I never wanted to see, like, a downside to my career. I wanted to get to where I was the highest and then say, okay, like, I can walk away and be happy and proud and stuff like that. And having the school really helps me make that decision a lot easier. Originally, it was going to be earlier this year, and then the Ring of Honor thing happened and stuff, and I wasn't sure how that was going to go. But I think we'd see how that's gone. Now I did that, and then I think that's going to be it. So officially, 2016 will be the last year of Firebrand Brand Fury as we know it.
Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, well, that's a bombshell. Our first bombshell. Well, I want to lobby now for a match somewhere. Maybe I'll have to end a certain moratorium I currently have. Because I would like to lock horns certainly one more time. Well,
no, I definitely. I mean, there's definitely some people that I would definitely want to make sure I wrestle at least one more time. Before I hang them up for good. No, I'm not gonna leave my boots in the middle of the ring, guys.
Come on!
Before you ask,
requirements.
So don't ask. I'm not gonna be doing that. But no, there's definitely some people that I definitely want to wrestle at least one more time. I have a couple more big, like, first time ever matchups coming up later on this year that are going to be awesome.
We have a big one in September.
Yeah, September 9th. I get to, I'm one of the few guys announced to wrestle Cody Rhodes on his independent run here as he's, just kind of getting back on the indies and stuff. So I'm super excited for that match.
That's at the Chaotic Show and
at the Lowell Spinner Stadium, a night of Grand Slams. I think that's what they're calling it or something like that. Yep. So I am like, when I got the call and told I was going to be wrestling Cody Rhodes, like, I was super excited. And then I didn't know when I could announce it, and then he kind of announced it and called me out on his Twitter. So I was like, well, that was pretty cool. Like, I guess so now I could talk about it. Both of us talked about it before Chaotic ever talked about it, but once he announced it, like, well, whatever, you're going to tell him, no, don't announce it.
Well, I heard they're probably going to unbook him because of it, right?
Yeah, they're thinking about
tell him to get the bricks.
Dock his pay.
So okay, so let's. There's not very much to say after that.
I know. I mean, just from a standpoint of somebody we've wrestled together so much, we've traveled a lot together. I think in the time that you've been in Chaotic, I think we've ran the gamut of what we talked about personal. But I mean, I get it, I understand, but it's a bummer. But if you're at peace with it, that's all that friggin' matters, man. If you're comfortable with it, and as we've seen here with the quotes from Dijak and Biff and Sasha Banks, like, yeah, you can still make a huge impact on and I think you realize that too. You can make a huge impact on this business from what you're doing with the school, because obviously you're doing some good friggin' work, man.
Thank
right.
you. No.
So, and you're going to be in demand for the rest of the year. So maybe you should give out your Twitter and emails and websites and all that stuff.
In demand would be nice. I mean, let's hope. It's the I don't have like a name for anything. Maybe the Final Fury Farewell Tour or something. Something along those lines. 2016 Final Fury. I don't know. But so yeah, like I'm trying to, book me up, please, if you can, the rest of the year, because I want to make it a memorable one, not only for me, but the fans. I'd like to try to get to as many places that I've wrestled before, just so I could, do one last match there. And so, yeah, Twitter is xbrianxfuryx. That's also my email address, xbrianxfuryx@hotmail.com. Same thing for my Instagram. Find me on Facebook at Brian Fury. Search Brian Fury. I don't have one of those pages or anything like that. The school, neprowrestling.com. On Twitter at neprowrestling.
Updated daily, right?
The Twitter and the Facebook page are updated regularly. The website is one of those beautiful things where it doesn't necessarily have to be updated too often. You could put some generic stuff up there, stock stuff, how to contact us, blah, 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 blah. It's all right on there.
You're going to get that webmaster on the ball.
Yes, he is in my living room right now, probably eating all of my food, watching the preliminary fights for UFC. So, yeah, that's neprowrestling.com, or you can just Google search New England Pro Wrestling Academy. We should pop right up, and then email us straight from the page and, come on down and train. We're accepting new students or people that have already trained previously. Come down, train with us for a bit, and then, go from there.
For more on the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing, subscribe to us wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or find us on our website, thewpan.com. That is thewpan.com.